Before we get very far into our next story, we do have a warning for you tonight. What you're about to see and hear may not be suitable for children. Tonight, take a walk in their world.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Transpicuous News Geomagnetic update. Going to give a short update. Things seem to have calmed down a little bit. And I'm going to make a response to a video that was put out last night. But before we get into that stuff, it is July 13th. We're halfway through the month already. I don't even know where summer's going to. Let us go here and we'll take a look at our various graphs. Yes, I'll talk about that in a minute. Things have seemingly calmed down. We're seeing still, again, I'm going to go do this really quickly with you guys. We're seeing, you know, the regular blasts kind of coming through, regular activities we see. I'll show you here. Come on, there we go. We are seeing compression at the front. We're seeing that there is some unrest kind of going on, but of course nothing like what we saw over the weekend last week when we saw the big blast coming in. Again, I want to note, okay, the compression's still here, but the directional, shall we say, pushing that we're seeing, not so much anymore. So that in itself is quite interesting. But you can see that the unrest has continued all the way through. It's just not to the level of what we were seeing last week. Okay, now, solar wind speeds, solar wind velocities, still hovering at we have a couple in the 400s. It takes up to 600 here and there. For the most part, it's pretty straightforward. Look, we got a 700 in there, 703 this morning at 9:42. But for the most part, it's remained relatively stable. The interesting one, though, is the magnetopause. Because again, while we're seeing this over here on the magnetosphere stuff, when we look over at the magnetopause positioning, we are still seeing compression happening. On the bow shock line here at the front, we're seeing compression here, and we're seeing compression from the underside. Again, not as much as we saw a few days ago, but it is still continuing. So I'm going to fly you through this really quick so we can see, again, there's obviously pressures coming in that is warping the magnetopause. And you can see as we get here from the southern pole, again, this major compression line happening. This kind of continues, does calm down as we get into this morning. Things are much calmer. We still do see the double bow shock line. And of course, the heat signatures, so to speak, behind. Now, I want to show you this. I'm going to back this up. We'll just pause it there for a second. I'll go over, I'm going to show you the geomagnetics, okay? Really calm. If anything, we had KP0 at one point after midnight. It has bounced up to KP1 again, which is still really low, but at least it's not a KP0, and I'll be keeping my eye on that for the rest of today, okay? We have literally no solar flares, nothing whatsoever. We go over to SolarHam, take a look at some of the graphs over here, and we can see, hold on, here we go. So the wind speeds are pretty much holding. They haven't really increased. They haven't really dropped. They're staying relatively stable. Same with the temperature. We do see a few little density spikes happening, and you'll remember that about 3 days ago I did an reading and we were seeing this where it was the density was showing really, really low. We are seeing an uptick now. There's quite a bit more density now than there was last week. Now, coronal hole. It is beginning its journey rotating out of view, but again, as I've always said, this is a minuscule coronal hole. It's teeny, teeny, teeny. Okay? So I want to address a video that was put out last night by Suspicious Observers, Ben from Suspicious Observers. I was sent this by, I don't know, at least 10 different people sent me this. It was posted everywhere, etc. And I started responding to each individual person, and then it was just like, okay, I'm just going to have to record something to put it out there just to give my views on some of this. There's some good information in this video. There's some excellent information in this video. For people who are just dipping their fingertips in and starting to learn about this stuff, this video has got some really great information. And on Suspicious Observer's website, which I don't have pulled up right now, unfortunately, on their website, they do have some excellent videos, tutorial tools that talks about the solar wind, the KP levels, what is all this cosmic rays coming in, etc. There's some really great little tutorials on there. So if you're just dipping your fingers in and trying to learn this stuff that we're talking about, I highly recommend going and taking a look at his videos, okay? But I personally found the video to be quite kind of condescending. And in as much as the way Ben tries to downplay the graphs that, of course, you guys know that I use. Where are we? There, these graphs. Now, as you guys know, when I talk about the geomagnetics, I have been talking nonstop about the fact of we have really limited tools. And unfortunately, we are stuck with the tools that we have. We would love to have better tools. We would love to have better measuring sticks, because that's the one I keep talking about. We obviously don't have the right measuring sticks in place to measure what's going on. So therefore, we have to work with the tools that we have. These are perfectly good tools. Yes, they're computer-generated models. Visual models based on computer-generated information coming from the ACE satellites, GOAs, etc. And if you look here, you can see, for example, here in the magnetopause, that these little dots here, the little spider dot, as I call it, and the little diamond are showing you GOAs 13 and 14 and where they are. So as we go through the feed, we can watch those satellites move, and we know where they're taking their readings from. Same too over here with the solar wind velocity. Here's your little satellites. And as you go through, you can see there's your little satellites moving around and showing you their position of taking this information. These satellites spend 50% of their time on the backside of Earth. So while yes, they're always pointing towards the sun, they're not just sitting in front of Earth measuring the incoming. They're also behind Earth measuring what's coming around. The particles, the pressures, all the various densities, the speed, the temperatures, etc. And computer models have been created to interpret the data. Now, I used to know someone who used to make computer models, not for this kind of thing, but they used to do computer models for science, biology actually. And one of the things he says is a computer model, you enter in, and anyone who's a programmer will understand this, you enter in the programming codes, that when this data is received, it will be shown in such a way. Yes, the models might be old. Yes, the ACE satellite might be old, but the data is still being read and then interpreted by the computer. In order for the computer to come up with the visual cues that we're seeing, for example, this over here on the magnetopause, for the computer to draw this line, it is based on information that has been plugged into the program. The fact that it's a computer model does not invalidate it. Yes, absolutely. This is a hypothesis. What we're seeing here, for example, the closed magnetic lines, okay, the polar cap lines, it's a hypothesis that's been put together by the computers, but it is based on the data that is incoming. So to take it and crunch it all up and throw it in the garbage and say it's all crap doesn't work that way. Now, the other piece to this that is really important is there seems to be an assumption that a lot of us who do these reports only look at this data. We don't only look at this data. The idea of collecting data is to look at as many feeds, at as many real-time reports as you can to try and ascertain if there's dots that can be connected, if there are other live stream, other data reports that are showing anomalies that happen at the same time in the same place, which is why, for example, we go to TSIS, and I go to the Russian TSIS site because I find them to be pretty more straight up than a lot of the other ones. And we look at SolarHam. Oh, look, here we go. Here's this exact same feed that Ben showed on his video. And we look and we analyze the data that's coming in here. Okay. The data is available. There are tons of models that we can go through. Okay. We look at things like real-time solar wind. And we look at this data and we say, okay, well, we can see we've got something is going on at this time. How does that visually compare to what we see on the computer models? Okay, hold on, I'm going to slide over here because I've got a bunch more. Okay, we look at, for example, we have the ACE Science Center that we can go through. We look at things like, for example, for me, I look at the muons. Do we see any bizarre spikes in the muons? When we go through here, is there anything that we can see on any of these other graphs that might indicate a reason for the unusual readings that we're seeing coming through? Okay, we look at, this is the corona and the rheometer. We look through and we go, oh, wait, we see some very unusual spikes over here. Do these spikes timed line up with any of the things that we're seeing on the geomagnetic? It's not just a matter of looking at a pretty picture and trying to come up with an all-around answer. As you guys know, when I talk about this stuff, I always talk about the questions we have when the data doesn't line up. Right now, the data doesn't line up. Why is the magnetopause showing this kind of distortion and compression continuously now for over a week, continuously, non-stop? If this is what we're getting, this is what we're seeing. If this data here is all correct, why are we seeing these? We can look at it as a comparative. We can look at it and say, do we see this kind of, in the magnetopause, do we see this kind of compression and distortion? Yeah, we do. Occasionally you do see it in the feeds. It comes, it goes. I've talked about this. Do we see it ongoing when it lasts for over a week solid? No. That's not something that we usually see. So therefore we have to look at that and say, okay, so what else is going on? We do the best we can with the tools that we have. Now, the one thing I will add in here, not to be catty, but the one sentence that Ben missed in his entire discussion was the words, "in my opinion." Because he's working from data models just like we are. He is formulating his hypotheses just like we are. And in his opinion, he puts out the information as he sees it, just like I do, just like Mr. MBB333, just like Blue Kool-Aid, just like Maverick Star, just like Oppenheimer Ranch, just like all these people. We are putting out our opinion based on the data that we can see. And that's all it is our opinion. Because we don't have the answers. No one has the answers. So I just wanted to put that out there as just a brief response, because I don't want people who are, again, just dipping their fingertips into this topic and they're just trying to learn what's going on. I don't want them to be overwhelmed with a piece of information that all of a sudden negates everything they thought they've just learned. The tool is the tool that we have. We keep researching. We try and find other tools. That's the job that we do. And then, to the best of our ability, we try to come up with a hypothesis, with theories of what we think may be happening. But in the end, all of us, it is just our opinion. That's it. Anyways, that's it for me, guys. I will talk to you later, and I'll keep an eye on the feeds, and we'll see if anything weird and flashy happens. Or maybe it'll all just go nice and calm, and we can all go back to sleeping again, because I'd like to be able to get some sleep one of these days soon. That's it. Bye, guys.